Eves Hill Farm is managed under the High Level Stewardship Scheme. As part of the scheme, the farm have planted miles of hedgerows, new woodlands and a great number of native trees.
As farmers, we have a responsibility to look after the countryside and look after what's going on in the various bits of nature on the farm. We've got to look after that, and it's just encouragement for us to do that and managed in a system which the government manages and the EU manages and make sure that we're doing it correctly. It's important, you know, we see ourselves as guardians of the countryside, and this allows us to do that basically.
So Patrick, you actually grew up in this area, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I grew up just down the hill there, and I was here obviously as a boy in the 1980s and 90s. But what's striking coming back 20 years on is how much this landscape's changed for the better. Conservationists tend to be a bit gloomy and they're always fighting this battle or that battle and things are getting worse. But here's a really good example of the countryside getting better through really good management, through good stewardship by Jeremy and also by the High Level Stewardship Scheme itself, and giving farmers an incentive to put hedgerows back into the landscape and these brilliant wildflower margins, and so you've suddenly got all this wildlife.
That must be so nice for the community as well.
I think it's really good. Obviously it's nice to have beautiful looking countryside, but as for local people, you want to encourage people to be able to use the countryside and be in it a bit. And so there's these permissive bridle paths, and so people are getting out and cycling and looking for nature and going for walks, and it's just a more hospitable landscape somehow, rather than just miles and miles of arable fields. It can be a bit like a desert. We're kind of familiar with those views in Norfolk, but as soon as you put hedgerows back into a landscape, you kind of add human scale to the countryside again, and make it a kind of friendlier place and a more exciting place, because there's just more going on and there's more to see.
This is a really good example, isn't it? We're talking about the HLS scheme. This hedgerow here is something that you've implemented, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. This is a hedgerow that we planted not so long ago. It's taken quite a while to strike. We're having a bit of a problem with deer nibbling the top off it, so we're sort of working against Mother Nature. But it is a good example of what we're doing, because around the farm, I think we've planted like 7 kilometres worth of hedges since we've been in the HLS scheme.
The thing that really struck me, how the hedge still has a practical purpose. It's a kind of old-fashioned piece of kit, but it's not just there for ecological, environmental reasons.
Yeah, that's right. Basically, the hedge is used for a barrier as well, because as we've got livestock on the farm, we plant hedges around meadows and grazing land to act as a visual barrier to stop them, you know, roaming outside that grazing area. And it also works as a windbreak, obviously, for the cattle, and get behind it, hunker down in sort of really cold weather, provides them from good protection, but a windbreak in the arable fields as well, stopping soil erosion and you know, our lovely topsoil from disappearing into the ether.
Flying away.
Yeah.
I love that. It's a bit like a bicycle. It's like an old-fashioned thing that still everyone wants and needs, and it's still very practical.
Yeah,
it's great.
exactly. And there's hedges are great as well, because you know, you find things like sloes in them and blackberries, and you know, you can forage from them. So we love having them on the farm. So in this little spinning here, this is often where you find little monkdeck and roe deer, but
Yeah.
it's strange, for the last few weeks we haven't seen any for ages, so I don't know why that is.
But there are still some sloes. It's incredibly late, isn't it?
Yeah, it
still
is.
see them.
Ah, the sloes for the gin.
Picked sloes in September, so that's a long slow season, isn't it?
A long, slow season.
What are they tasting like, do you reckon?
They're going to be bitter.
I think you guys-
Yeah.
Is it?
Best in the drink, rather than just straight from the bush.
Best add some gin.
This is our HLS winter birdseed plot, which basically an area of land that we've planted with lots of different plants which provide valuable winter bird feed for all the sort of usual birds that you'd expect to find on the farm, hedgerow birds, game, etc. So yeah, a nice little spot on the farm to come visit and watch a few birds.
We've just seen a load. We probably put them off feeding here, and they've just gone into the hedgerow up there, and there's a chaffinch, I think, up there, and there's another couple of little finches.
It's great because it's a real variety. You've got grains, poultices, everything in here, and it also provides, you know, good cover for pheasants, partridges, deer, all sorts really.
And there's so much still here, this will keep them going all winter, won't it?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm so pleased that we are in this scheme because, you know, it does create a really nice working environment. You know, it's like someone going into the office and putting photos on their desks and making their desk all nice. This, for me, makes where I work just so amazing. Seeing all this wonderful bird life, wildlife, you know, plants all around me every day. It's great, and it fits in really well with the ethos of Eves Hill Farm. It's what we want to do. We want to create this nice working environment, not only for ourselves, but for the public to enjoy as well, so everyone can really enjoy the farm and, you know, nature in the local community.